Welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Friday, 28 March. I'm your host Daniel, and today we'll be covering a powerful earthquake has hit Myanmar in Thailand. Israel strikes Beirut for the first time since the ceasefire began, and the Istanbul mayor's lawyer has been detained. So firstly, a powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake has struck Myanmar, causing widespread devastation and being felt as far as Bangkok, Thailand. The earthquake, followed by a 6.4 magnitude aftershock, resulted in numerous deaths and severe damage in both countries. In Bangkok, a high-rise under construction collapsed, killing at least 3 people and trapping dozens. The Thai Prime Minister has declared a state of emergency, while the Myanmar's government did the same for key cities. Roads buckled, buildings crumbled, and emergency crews scrambled to access the full extent of the disaster. In Myanmar, cities like Sangam suffered major damage, with concerns over infrastructure collapse, including bridges, dams. The Red Cross warned of significant humanitarian impact, and rescue operations are currently underway. The earthquake caused widespread panic, with people evacuating buildings and running into the streets. Witnesses in Bangkok described chaotic scenes, with hundreds fleeing hotels and office buildings. In Thailand, public transportation was disrupted and financial markets were halted. There were reports of collapsing structures, including mosques and historic bridges, in Myanmar, as authorities worked to gather casualty figures. So what? It is highly likely that this will be a significant disaster due to the size of the earthquake, with the true realities of the damage and loss of life not being understood for possibly weeks. It is also likely that rescue efforts will require an international response, something that thankfully seems to be done regularly regardless of the levels of geopolitical tension. One thing to watch will be how this affects the Myanmar junta. It is possible that this destruction will be too much for them to deal with and could speed up their demise. However, it is also possible that the rebel groups will suffer considerably from this, making their operations more difficult. And next, Israel has carried out a strike in Beirut for the first time since the ceasefire that ended the Israel-Hezbollah war in November. The attack targeted a drone storage facility in the southern suburbs, an area known as a Hezbollah stronghold. Following rocket fire from Lebanon, Israel also bombarded Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon, with the defense minister warning that Lebanon's government bore responsibility. Meanwhile, Hezbollah denied involvement in the attacks on Israel and reiterated its commitment to the ceasefire. The UN expressed concerns over the escalating hostilities, while French President Emmanuel Macron criticised the strike, calling it a violation of the ceasefire. The ceasefire, which aimed to end months of intense fighting between Israel and Hezbollah, included provisions for Hezbollah to withdraw from southern Lebanon and for the Lebanese military to increase its presence there. The recent escalations raised concerns about the renewed conflict as both sides exchange blame. The situation remains fragile, with potential for further violence. The Israeli government maintains that it will not tolerate attacks on its northern communities, while Hezbollah's stance on the ceasefire remains under scrutiny. So what? While this is clearly breaking the agreed-upon ceasefire, Hezbollah has already broken the ceasefire several times, making it basically ruined anyway. One major issue will be if Hezbollah advances south into the agreed-upon buffer zone again, as this could lead to further direct confrontation between Hezbollah and the IDF. However, this currently seems unlikely, as the situation change in Syria has significantly hindered supply lines for Hezbollah, stopping Iran from being able to transport large shipments of weapons directly to the group. Though it is likely that it won't affect small arms and rockets, it will likely have an effect on their ballistic missile and large drone stockpiles, making attacks on Israel more difficult. And lastly, jailed Istanbul mayor announced on Friday that his lawyer had been detained on what he described as fictitious grounds. The lawyer had represented the mayor in court on corruption charges just days earlier. The mayor is a key opposition figure to the current president, Tayyip Erdogan, and was arrested last week ahead of an expected presidential bid announcement, sparking Turkey's largest anti-government protests in a decade. Since then, authorities have arrested nearly 1,900 people, including demonstrators and journalists. The Turkish government has also cracked down on media coverage of the protests, detaining reporters and imposing fines on broadcasting bans on major news channels. The BBC and other outlets have been told they need to halt broadcasts for at least 10 days. Despite the crackdown, protests have continued across Turkey, with fresh demonstrations taking place overnight. The opposition party has called for sustained protests, though Erdogan has dismissed them as a show and warned of legal repercussions. While most demonstrations have remained peaceful, police have used force, including water cannons, tear gas, and plastic pellets, to disperse banned gatherings in Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir. Student protests have also been rounded up by police. So what? It seems unlikely that the Turkish government will be able to legitimize this arrest as anything more than intimidation. It is likely the lawyer will be released soon, as his detention long term seems unviable, and that this was just an attempt to scare him off. Additionally, it is possible that this will encourage the protesters to carry on, as the government is almost certainly trying to get this squared away quickly and quietly. Regardless, it is highly unlikely that Erdogan will show any remorse for these protesters and will use whatever force is needed to end them. Thank you for tuning in to the Intel Brief, your daily update on global geopolitics, brought to you by HM Intelligence. You can support the show by sharing it with your friends and leaving us a 5-star review. Or if you're curious to learn more about intelligence, why not check out one of our courses in the description below. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.